And now please welcome Henry Brookman, the class of 2022 speaker.
Over the past few months, and really this whole school year, I've tried to keep college out of my mind. I've always known it was coming, but it always seemed so far off. Every year we say goodbye to our friends or our siblings, and they go off on their journey to whatever part of the world. But to me, it never really felt like it was going to be part of my reality. There was always another grade ahead or a paper next week. But throughout this year, the thought of college and all the uncertainty it brings with it kept lurking in the back of my mind. Despite all the challenging and difficult and stressful things about school, I love Country Day. It's been my home for 13 years, and for most of us, just as long or close to it. It scared me to think that I was going to have to leave at some point. Sure, it was exciting and new, but it brought up so many questions. Will I like my new school? Will I still have my friends from high school a few years from now? Am I ready? Our parents, siblings, and friends all reassure us that we are truly ready. But for me at least, their answers seem sort of far off, empty. They don't know me, they don't know our grade. But as it's drawn closer and closer, I've started to find some answers to these questions myself that help me find a little more peace with these thoughts. Do you remember in middle school when Sebastian would wear those goggles every day? No, I'm serious. The sports ones that made his eyes look really big. The goggles were Sebastian. But unfortunately, one night, Sebastian's dog got to his goggles, and they were sadly pronounced dead the next morning. When Seabass showed up the next day wearing a different pair of goggles, we were all devastated. He pulled this mangled corpse of plastic, missing the lenses out of his backpack, and we knew something had to be done. We had to hold a funeral. As a somber line of sixth grade boys traipsed out to Rossiter Field, we all shared in a moment of silence. We read the last rites and shed our tears before lowering the body into its final resting place, the best storm drain we could find. We all got a little closer that day. It didn't matter that Sebastian got a new pair of goggles or that Coach Raines pulled them out of the storm drain 5 seconds after we all ran away. It's the dozens of stories like these that I, and I think many of you, will remember far into and beyond college. We may not go to the same school or live in the same state, but all of us will be forever bound by the friendship of Sebastian's goggles. Another story I feel obligated to address here is, yes, the board. For those of you that don't know, at this year's Battle of Bryan Irvin game, a section of the TVS visitors bench was liberated from the stands and may or may not have found its way to our campus. And now that we're here at graduation, I will take this moment to publicly say, yes, I know it was definitely not entirely the senior class's fault. Now, I won't say who else might share some of the blame underclassmen, but we all knew it was not completely our fault. But when the senior class was put on the chopping block for the incident, deflecting blame didn't matter. We grumbled, sure, but we sucked it up, and we took responsibility. We let our privileges go for a week. We pledged to and sent a signed apology letter to TVS. Even dealt with me schlepping around, collecting money as reparations, but also to show who we really are as a class and how we wanted to be viewed. Every one of us pitched in. As bizarre as that episode was, I think that's where we showed our true worth as a class. Humility, teamwork, responsibility, kindness, 3 qualities that I truly do believe we will carry to college and beyond. But the final and most important story I would like to share today is about Joaquin. For those of you that don't know, Joaquin is quite literally tough as nails. He does around 25 hours of work a day and on the world's most insane sleep schedule. Trust me, I've seen it. But I think to anyone who's met Joaquin, his most evident quality is his unbreakable independence. And when I say unbreakable, I mean it. There was one day earlier this year when we had finished cleaning up after a late night student council event, and all of the seniors went out to eat dinner afterwards. I convinced Joaquin to throw his bike in the back of my car and drove him to go eat. When they brought out our checks at the end of the night, Joaquin was mortified that he'd forgotten his wallet. I told him not to worry about it and that I would pay for his food, no big deal. But he insisted that I would let him pay me back later. I just kept telling him not to worry about it. Everyone at the table refused to tell him how much his food cost because we all knew he was going to try and find me the next day and pay me. So, the next day, I get out of volleyball practice. I go to change in the locker room. I pull all my stuff out of my locker, and as I'm about to leave, I'm putting on my shoes. I feel something weird in there, and I dump it out, and it's just this little red sticky note that just says Burrito del Norte, attached to a little money clip for the exact menu price of his food. I never used it because I felt evil for even having it in the first place, but I have it down here somewhere. It's somewhere in there. I'll get it to you later, Joaquin. It's in... Hold on a minute. There you go, Joaquin. So, one day earlier this year, as we all know, that unshakable independence was literally broken. Biking home from school late at night, Joaquin got hit by a car. It was very, very scary. His leg was broken, but luckily he was going to be okay. His parents flew in from Georgia, and it really seemed like Joaquin was just not going to be able to stay in Fort Worth. He wasn't going to be able to make it to school, he couldn't manage his extracurriculars, and most importantly, he had a broken leg to heal. Joaquin hit a wall that he really couldn't climb on his own this time, but we wanted to help him. He ended up living at our house, but it was every single person in this room that made that possible, every single person. It was Reed's, Miles, Gage's, and so many other families bringing over dinner for him while he was stuck at home. It was Reagan, Catherine, and Tyler FaceTiming him from football games, Akil and Sawyer encouraging him as cross-country teammates, Jasmine, Banner, Gavin, and others who went to his orchestra concerts, people taking him to school, bringing him work, coming to visit. It was every person in these rows that kept Joaquin here. It was an effort of complete and total compassion, a value that we now all understand the true meaning of. Thinking back on these and many other stories, I believe I have an answer to my worries. Are we ready? I know we are. Unity, humility, teamwork, responsibility, kindness, grit, compassion. These values are ingrained into every one of us. And with them, we are ready for the world. Thank you. Now, in the same spirit of helping out Joaquin, it is my pleasure to introduce the Class of 2022's class gift. As you proceed up here, you'll drop your envelopes in the basket in front of the podium. The Class of 2022 is awarding money to Breakthrough this year for computers for the students who need them. So thank you very much. All right, fellow replicants. He's somewhere out there. He knows who he is. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Wakeland.